Guys, so today's lesson is going to be tagging on to what we were working on before. We were looking at simple subjects and simple predicates to help us avoid, or complete subjects, complete predicates, simple predicates, to help us avoid fragments and run-ons. We spent some time last time looking at fragments, so today we're going to be looking more at run-on sentences. Here we go. Okay, so English grammar lessons for all ages. Today is fragments and run-on sentences. What in the world are those things, and how do I avoid making some of these errors in my writing? So let's review. Simply put, a sentence tells the reader what is happening to whom by including both a subject and a predicate. So just in case you didn't see my first video, just a quick review. A subject is what or whom the sentence is about. School, the student, a car, a movie, friendship, a cat, a book, the clouds, my grandma. So this tells us anything that those subjects are doing would be the predicate. It explains what the subject is doing. So runs, was sleeping, hears, talked, is jumping, sat, ran, could be napping. All right, that's your predicate. So your subject is what or whom the sentence is about. Your predicate explains what the subject is doing. So for the in-depth lesson on subjects and predicates, please review the video linked in the description below this video. We're going to talk a little bit more about some basic parts of speech. In the last video, we looked at nouns and verbs. So to understand how to avoid grammatical mistakes, you have to understand the basic parts of speech. In lesson 1, we learned about nouns and verbs. So in this lesson, we will learn about conjunctions and adverbs. Are you singing the conjunction song? If so, you might be my age. All right, a conjunction, a word that brings together clauses, phrases, or other words. So the most commonly used conjunctions are the following: and, but, or, because, for, and though, or although is also a conjunction. And there are plenty more. This is just the tip of the iceberg as far as how many conjunctions there are, but these are the ones you see the most. Adverbs. So an adverb is a word that modifies a verb, an adjective, or another adverb. Yes, an adverb can modify an adverb. It sounds kind of weird, but it can. By providing the information about how something is done, where it's being done, when it's being done, how much or how often. So some examples of adverbs are happily, soon, always, never, then, early, late, unfortunately, and slowly. Again, tons and tons of adverbs out there. This is probably not even the tip of the iceberg. This really is just giving you a few examples. All right, so let's jump into fragments and run-on sentences. When you're writing for school, to apply for a job, a complaint letter, or anything formal, you need to write using complete sentences. This lesson will help you ensure that you are not accidentally writing fragments or run-on sentences. So how can I make sure I'm writing complete sentences? How can I avoid writing run-ons? By learning about fragments and run-on sentences and avoiding them. Okay, this is another review. A fragment is an incomplete sentence because it is either missing a subject or a predicate. Predicate also known as a verb and anything attached to the verb. A run-on sentence is when two or more, and I'm not going to say sentences this time, but a sentence is joined together, run together with a clause or phrase or other words without the proper punctuation and or conjunctions. And it could be two sentences run together without the right punctuation, but it doesn't have to be two sentences. It can be a sentence and a clause, a sentence and a phrase, or a sentence with some extra words that are unnecessary. That would be a run-on sentence. So it could be missing a period, a semicolon, a comma with a conjunction, or something else. A lot of repetition sometimes. People saying and over again. That'd be a run-on sentence. All right, so we're going to learn about run-on sentences today, which is when two or more subjects and or predicates are run together in a sentence without the proper punctuation. So you're missing a period, a semicolon, a question mark, an exclamation point, or even a comma with a conjunction. To decide if a sentence is a run-on or not, look for a subject and predicate. If you see that you have more than one of either one of these and it doesn't have the right punctuation marks or conjunction, then it's probably a run-on sentence and needs to be corrected. Run-on sentence examples and how to correct them. So I'm not just going to toss you to the wolves. I'm going to show you what it might look like and give you a couple ways to correct them. Just because you see an example with a correction does not mean there's only one way to correct it. Keep in mind that you can correct it in multiple ways. So here's an example. He went to the store and then went to play ball and then went home and played video games with his friends online, but he was also texting them while he played. There's a whole lot of conjunctions in there and very few commas to separate it. A lot of repetition that is unnecessary. So we're going to fix that. To correct this, we need to get rid of some of the conjunctions. Conjunction would be and, or, but, because, or for. Remember, those are the main conjunctions you see. We need to get rid of some of the extra pronouns. Pronouns are words that replace nouns like he, she, they, we, it, his, her, him, etc. And adverbs. Okay, so then is an adverb, and we see that repeating in this sentence. It's unnecessary to repeat so many times. Then we need to add commas to separate each activity. This is called a serial comma. So when you have a list and you separate each item with a comma, that's called a serial comma. Also, I use the highly debated Oxford comma. I can do a lesson on the Oxford comma at some other time that I will link here in the future, but at this point, simply to explain, the Oxford comma is the comma that comes before the conjunction in a list of serial, in a series, I can't talk, in a series with the commas in between, known as the serial comma. So the one that comes right before the conjunction is called the Oxford comma, and I will point that out in my example in a moment. Also, we need to add the adverb while after the comma and conjunction to bring together both independent clauses. I'll show you what I'm talking about when I give you the correction. There are other correct methods as well. That's the beauty of our language. You can rephrase and rewrite in so many different ways, but this is just one way to do it. He went to the store, played ball, and then went home. Later, he played video games online while texting his friends. So let me just talk about the few things I said above. He went to the store, comma, played ball, comma, and then went home. This is the serial comma. Okay, so went to the store was the first item in the list, comma, that's your first comma in your serial comma. Played ball, comma. This is considered your Oxford comma. So you have commas that separate items in a list, and the one right before the conjunction is the Oxford comma. Some people leave that comma out. Grammatically speaking, you're not going to be incorrect whether you include it or don't include it. If this is for school, I recommend you ask your teacher if your teacher prefers the Oxford comma, especially if this is for English class. It is really going to depend on the teacher. Now, if this is journalism rules state that you leave out the Oxford comma, so it really depends on your purpose. I personally prefer the Oxford comma, so in my writing and in my editing, I always include the Oxford comma. And that's just a little sidebar. Here's another thing that I want to point out. This semicolon right here. So what I did was I got rid of a bunch of the conjunctions. He went to the store, and then he went to play ball, and then went home, and played video games with his friends online. So we got rid of some of those. He went to the store, comma, played ball, comma, and then went home. I cleaned it up quite a bit, but because I wanted to show you how to take all of that and turn that into one complete sentence, I decided to put a semicolon here. So what a semicolon does is it allows two separate independent clauses to be joined together without being a run-on sentence. Sometimes if you put a period here instead of the semicolon, it makes the sentences sound too choppy because the period completely stops the reader. He went to the store, played ball, and then went home, period. It stops the reader. So if we want the reader to sort of move on smoothly into the next thought, which is closely related to this thought, then we use a semicolon. Okay, so he went to the store, comma, played ball, comma, and then went home, semicolon. Later, comma. He played video games online while texting his friends. And notice I said that we needed to include while texting his friends because the way it was written above, it was complicated and complex, so we made it a little bit easier to understand. Up here it says played video games with his friends online, but he was also texting them while he played. That's just too complicated. So we cleaned it up a little bit when we said he played video games online while texting his friends. Okay? While is an adverb. So that needed to be included. It was just in the wrong place before. All right, that was a long explanation for something that seems simple to correct, right? But now you are going to practice. So you may pause the video to write your correction on a piece of paper or type it on a blank document. I'm going to show you one or two examples of how to correct it. I'll give you about 10-15 seconds. If you need to pause it, please feel free. So I'm only going to give you 10 to 15 seconds. Number one, we bought nails, we bought a hammer. Okay, if you're not ready, pause it. Answer number one, we bought nails and a hammer. That's one option. And remember, the beauty of our language is that there is not necessarily only one way to rewrite a sentence. Answer two, we bought nails, semicolon, we bought a hammer. Maybe there is a purpose for saying it this way. We bought nails, we bought a hammer, we bought lumber. And you're doing it in this way so that you can really emphasize all of the individual items that we bought. Maybe that's why we're writing it this way, right? So keep in mind that it all depends on your purpose. Number one is a lot cleaner. We bought nails and a hammer. It's a lot cleaner to say it that way. But if you have a specific purpose for separating those items out and repeating we bought, then write it that way if it serves a purpose. But don't do it that way just for no reason. It becomes very clunky if there's not a reason for it. And trust me, your reader will understand that. Okay, number two. How do you go to the store, run a marathon, help your sister? Okay, pause this if you are not ready. How do you go to the store, comma, run a marathon, comma, and help your sister? Question mark. All right, this is another one that would have multiple ways to make the correction, so keep that in mind. It does not have to be written in this manner. It is just one option. I saw it as the best option. Number three, I was hungry, I ate lunch. Okay, pause the video if you're not ready. This one has three different options. Number one, I was hungry, comma, so I ate lunch. Number two, I was hungry, semicolon, I ate lunch. Number three, I was hungry and I ate lunch. So for number three, notice that there was no comma needed. When you bring together two short independent clauses with a conjunction, you do not need a comma in between the two. So let's say that one of these clauses was a little bit longer than the other, then you would put a comma before the conjunction. But if they're both short, you do not need a comma before the conjunction. Same thing with answer number one. I was hungry, so I ate lunch. So is a conjunction also. And if you want to, you can leave that comma out of there because they're both short. However, if one of them is long or it confuses the reader not to have it in there, then you must include the comma before the conjunction. Number four, I was hungry, I ate lunch. I helped my sister do her homework. Okay, pause it if you're not ready. Two options. Number one, I was hungry, comma, so I ate lunch, comma, and then I helped my sister do her homework. An alternative, I was hungry, semicolon. I ate lunch and then I helped my sister do her homework. So notice that there is no comma before that conjunction and, because these are two short independent clauses that are closely related, and they do not need a comma to separate that conjunction. I was hungry, semicolon. I ate lunch and then I helped my sister do her homework. All right, here's a bonus statement for you to figure out. It's a bonus statement. You might want to pause the video for this one because it's long and it's going to have both fragment and run-on in it. So this is where you're going to practice those skills to correct fragments and run-ons together. Number 5, I knew both of them. They were my friends, the brothers. I hung out with them after school. We would play basketball, sometimes go to their house. I'm going to give you 15 seconds for this one, and I will let you know when you can pause it before I show you the answer. Okay, if you're not ready, pause the video. Here is one way to correct this, and again, not the only way. I knew both of them, semicolon. They were my friends, in parentheses, the brothers, comma, so I hung out with them after school and we would play basketball or sometimes go to their house. I'm going to read that again without reading the punctuation. I knew both of them. They were my friends, the brothers, so I hung out with them after school and we would play basketball or sometimes go to their house. Okay, it's definitely a lot easier to read than the yellow part. It's less complex, it makes more sense, and it flows a lot more smoothly. You need to take a look at your writing and make sure you're not writing clunky clauses and phrases in sentences. You want to make sure that it's smooth, it makes sense, it's not going to hang the reader up on what you mean. Sometimes we know what we mean and the audience doesn't know what we mean. So it gets a little tricky if you're expecting the audience to know exactly what's going on in your head. Try to put your work down for at least 24 hours, longer if you can. Go back and reread it after you've had some time away from it and see if you're writing clunky sentences like that. If you are, you might want to make sure you have someone else read it and point those things out so you can correct them. Thank you for watching. In order to avoid leaving fragments behind in your formal writing, make sure each sentence has a subject and predicate. It will say who is doing what. And then in order to avoid run-on sentences in your formal writing, make sure you combine similar ideas, avoid repeating the same words, use the proper punctuation marks, commas, semicolons, parentheses, etc., and conjunctions and, but, or, because, or for, where necessary, and always include an ending punctuation mark, period, exclamation point, or question mark. Thank you for watching, and hopefully this helps you avoid fragments and run-on sentences.